Before getting into today's stories, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. Flavored air is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking. Fume will become a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. It fills the void in a natural, guilt-free way, and you won't feel left out as your friends are reaching for their bad habits. Fume isn't like vaping. It draws flavor to your mouth without the vapor and contains no nicotine, so it's not addictive. All flavors are non-toxic. My favorite part is it requires no batteries, so you never need to charge it. Plus, the piece looks really cool and is fun to hold and fidget with, which in of itself can help calm anxiety. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you could be the next success story. For a limited time, use my code NIGHTMARE to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for those who love to fidget, and it's reusable. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code NIGHTMARE or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume topper when you order your journey pack today. I wasn't very social in college. I didn't get good grades, I wasn't in a frat, I didn't have a girlfriend, and I wasn't very involved in anything. I wasn't a very happy kid. I'm not complaining though. I found a loyal girl who would never stop fighting for me in my late 30s. My life is good now. We live together with 2 cats named Blue and Raz, and I'm planning on proposing soon. Like I was saying though, I wasn't in a frat, so generic frat parties were kind of off the table for me. I still wanted to have fun though. I mean, who wouldn't? My friends Bryson and Ian were in the same boat. We spent most weekends killing time in Bryson's dorm. That being said, we took every chance we got when it came to parties. Most of the parties we were lucky enough to go to were off campus, meaning they weren't associated with any of the frats or the school itself. One time we actually drove over an hour just to go to a party. It's safe to say we were pretty desperate. One Friday afternoon, Ian texted the group chat saying the girl he was talking to knew of a party not that far away. Ian tended to attract the strangest girls. I'm sure you know the ones I'm talking about. Bryson joked that he didn't want to go to some death metal, emo anime party, which I kind of agreed with. Ian was pretty adamant though, and convinced us that this would be a normal party. It's not like we had anything better going on. Bryson convinced his brother Chris to be our designated driver. Chris didn't drink anyway, and said he'd be down for a party, so everything was looking good. As we were driving to the party, Ian started complaining about the girl he was talking to. He said she hadn't answered him in hours, which honestly wasn't too surprising considering the kind of guy Ian was. He was actually pretty torn, and said he was having second thoughts about even going, which seemed like an overreaction. We were already 30 minutes deep, so we weren't just gonna go turn around and go home. We told him to suck it up and not let it ruin the night. After a few more minutes, Ian said Callista's profile disappeared from his phone altogether. We broke it to him that he had been blocked and she probably decided to go to the party with someone else. He pouted for the rest of the drive. When we reached the party, we instantly knew we'd made the right choice. The house was massive, especially compared to the rest of the houses on the block. Ian didn't want to go in just yet, saying he needed a buzz to take his mind off the situation. Bryson and I didn't object to drinking, so we told Chris to park a little further down the street so we could pregame outside the car. We killed a few of the beers we had brought with us and watched as people entered the house in droves. It honestly looked like a pretty lit party. Once Ian was satisfied with his buzz, the 4 of us started making our way over to the house. As soon as we stepped inside, I could tell something was off. For starters, all the lights were on, like there was no ambient lighting throughout the entire house. Just the bright overhead lights that you'd expect to be off at a college party. Most of the people there were very nicely dressed, not what you'd expect people to wear at a rowdy party. The scene looked more like a fancy dinner party than anything else, but maybe that's what it was. After all, we didn't really have any details about what we were walking into. We didn't look too out of place, but the clothing differences were definitely noticeable. The music was also bizarre. They weren't playing trap or hip-hop or any of the usual party music. Instead, they were playing some kind of ethereal, almost druggy music. I'm not really sure what genre it was or how to describe it, but none of the songs had any words, just instruments. I guess it wasn't bad per se, but it was odd. My friends and I looked at each other, trying to make sense of what was going on. We drilled Ian for details, but he said he was just as clueless as we were. The four of us walked around a little, exploring the house. There was alcohol everywhere, so we helped ourselves. A few minutes in, I started noticing people catching my eye and then immediately looking away. It was actually so apparent that I started wondering if there was something in my teeth. I figured I was just getting looks because of what I was wearing, which did make sense to me at the time. The four of us were honestly having a good time, despite the weird atmosphere. Actually, I take that back. Chris was pretty bored and said he was going to go smoke in his car. We figured it was because he didn't have a drop of alcohol in him. A few minutes after he left, a group of girls approached us. We definitely weren't super confident, so getting approached was a new thing. The three of them started flirting with us almost immediately, like it wasn't even subtle. They joked about an entrance fee, which I thought was funny until I saw that they were being serious. They were holding a bottle of tequila, which we definitely weren't going to turn down. Without much thought, and not wanting to appear uncool, we swigged the bottle. After that point, the six of us stuck together, drinking, talking, and occasionally dancing. It was going really well. At one point, I noticed a weird mark on Tina's neck. It was a short but solid green line that looked like it had been drawn on in Sharpie. The line was pretty thin, and I probably wouldn't have noticed it had I not been standing so close to her. I debated asking her about it, but decided against it to avoid potentially offending her. It might have been a birthmark or something like that. Once I had seen it though, I couldn't unsee it. It just looked so unnatural, and green of all colors. Who wears green makeup? It couldn't have been a makeup smear. I decided to let it go and continued flirting with her, wondering where things would end up. Eventually, I saw Bryson and the girl he was with begin to wander off upstairs, which I was happy about. Pretty soon afterwards, I noticed Ian and his girl also walking towards the stairs. I was nervous to ask Tina anything suggestive because I didn't want to mess anything up. Despite the alcohol, I could feel myself getting really anxious and sweaty, so I told Tina I was going to the bathroom and that I'd be right back. The only bathroom I could find was occupied, so I stood outside the door and waited. Eventually, the door opened and a really tall, older-looking guy wearing a white button-down and linen pants stepped out. I rushed into the bathroom and he bumped into me. I turned around and kind of expected him to apologize, but he just stood there, staring at me. It was the strangest thing. He just stood there with this blank look, sizing me up. I was about to say something when I noticed what was on his neck. The same green line I had seen on Tina. It was literally identical. Against my better judgment, I asked him what his problem was. He smirked and shook his head before saying, "Who invited you?" Not knowing how to answer that, I blurted out Callista, the girl that had stood up Ian. He chuckled and looked up, like he knew who I was talking about. He looked back at me, his smile completely gone now. In a low voice, he repeated her name before gesturing around the party. "Do you see Callista here?" I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just slammed the door in his face, wondering what the hell had just happened. I couldn't get over what he said or that green mark on his neck. Part of me regretted not asking him more questions about what the hell was going on. I left the bathroom, looking for him. I walked past more people that eyed me up like I didn't belong. I didn't care though. I was gonna find my friends and drag them out of here. While wandering around the party, I couldn't stop thinking about that green mark. I started looking closely at people's necks, trying to see if anyone else had a mark on their neck. And to my horror, I actually saw 2 more people with the green lines on their necks. They were all the same color, same length, same thickness, same everything. It was freaky. I kept looking for that guy, all the while analyzing people's necks. Most people weren't marked up, but I kept catching glimpses of green lines on various people's necks. I was starting to freak out, so I made my way to the stairs, looking for my friends. Thankfully, as I was walking up the stairs, Bryson and Ian were walking down. I urged the 2 of them to follow me, and I brought them to an empty hallway so we could talk. I briefly told them about my theory and said we had to leave immediately. They burst out laughing and told me I was just drunk. Bryson told me I was just jealous because they had hooked up and I didn't. I asked him where his girl had gone, and he told me she had instructed him to meet back upstairs in 20 minutes. Ian said his girl told him the same thing. There was no reasoning with these 2. They were riding the high of a hookup. I told them to follow me and that I'd prove that people had strange marks on their necks, but they weren't budging. Just when I was about to give up, Ian turned to the side, and what I saw was actually horrifying. There was a thin line on his neck, only this one was red, not green. I practically screamed at him, which actually got them to listen to me. I then inspected Bryson's neck, and there was a red mark on his too. Ian told me to relax and that it was probably just a makeup stain, but Bryson started to believe me. I told them we were leaving, and Bryson and I turned to find the door. Ian still wouldn't leave, saying he wanted to meet back up with the girl. Just then, a random guy walked past us, eyeing each of us up separately. He didn't say anything, but paused long enough for us to notice the green line on his neck. That was it. Bryson and I rushed for the door with Ian close behind. It felt like everyone there was staring at us as we left, but no one moved to stop us. We ran to Chris's car and told him to drive. As we were leaving, both Ian and Bryson's phones started blowing up. Those girls were asking why we had left. How could they have even known that? They weren't even around to see us leave. My friends blocked the girls. Everyone I tell this story to has their own crazy theory about what happened that night. I really don't know what to think about it, but I don't think I want to know what might have happened had that guy not tipped me off. I'm a graduate student studying civil engineering at Purdue University. I actually started a few months ago. I was in a good place, all things considered. Classes were going well, I made a couple friends, and the apartment I found was decently priced. The landlord was pretty sketchy though. I had a car and lived pretty far away from campus, but I liked driving. The only downside, it was a sketchy part of town, but I didn't care much about that. I'm a guy in my mid-20s, so I figured I could handle myself. Yeah, things were a little boring, but I was there for a degree and not a party. Everything was pretty normal, until the day my backpack got stolen. I had left it on a table in a random hall to go to the bathroom like an idiot. By the time I got back, it was gone. Of course, that specific lecture hall didn't have cameras, so there was literally nothing I could do. I was more annoyed than anything. My wallet, keys, and laptop were in there. I had to cancel my cards and get new ones, report my keys missing to the landlord, and start looking for a replacement laptop. It was a whole thing. It sucked, but things happen. It wasn't until a few days later that I realized the situation was 1,000 times worse than I had anticipated. I drove home from campus one evening to find a handwritten note slipped under my door. I figured it was just a reminder from my landlord about something, but I was dead wrong. When I opened it up, it just said, "I see you." No name, no signature, just those 3 words. I instantly put 2 and 2 together. Whoever had stolen my backpack had gone through my laptop somehow and figured out where I lived. That was terrifying enough, but just then I had a thought that was so much worse. Whoever had stolen my backpack had my apartment keys. I felt my skin starting to itch, and I looked over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone there. I ran into my apartment and slammed the door shut. I had a deadlock, so even if someone did try to break in, they wouldn't be able to get past that. Over the next week, I got more notes, all handwritten. They weren't long, just weird phrases like, "I know what you did," or "watch yourself." At that point, it was really starting to freak me out. I had never done anything wrong really, but if someone had gone through my laptop, who knows what they could have found? I really didn't know what to do. Would going to the police even help? I figured I'd wait it out a little longer, hoping whoever was messing with me would get bored. One night, I was getting ready for bed when I noticed something. It was dark outside and my blinds were half closed, but I could have sworn I saw a flash, like someone took a picture of me. I quickly pulled the blinds down, but my heart was racing. There was no one there. Things didn't stop there. I started noticing small things around my apartment, things being moved. At first, I thought I was just being careless. My shoes would be in a different spot, or my coat would be draped over the chair instead of hung up. It was little things that I could explain away if I really tried. But then, one day, I came home to find my bedsheets stripped off and my room completely turned upside down. My dresser drawers were pulled out, my books scattered across the floor. It looked like someone had torn through the place. I called the cops, of course, but they didn't do much. No forced entry, nothing stolen, so there was not much they could do apparently. I asked my landlord to change the locks, but he said it would take at least 2 days to get someone out. I begged him to make it happen sooner, but he shrugged it off, saying it wasn't an emergency. I felt betrayed. How in the world could this guy not think that this was an emergency? I kept pressuring him to do something, but he eventually stopped answering, no matter what I said. That was literally yesterday as I'm writing this. I barely slept at all last night, even though I was safe with the deadlock in place. I'm thinking of changing the locks myself, but I'm not sure how I could even do that without causing expensive damage. I called out of all my classes this morning because I'm afraid to leave my room. I'm still here, writing all of this down. I'm prepared to confront whoever it is if they come back. I'm sure if they went through my laptop, they would know my class schedule. Maybe I'll hide somewhere and get the jump on them if they try to enter while I'm supposed to be at class. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'll give an update when I can. I've been having an ongoing issue that I can't keep to myself anymore. I had just broken up with my boyfriend of 2 years, Ben. It wasn't a bad breakup, but it wasn't great either. We'd been arguing for months, and it was obvious things weren't going to work out. So, when we finally ended things, I thought it was for the best. I blocked him on everything, and that was that. I go to Temple University, and I live in this small apartment near campus. It's on the second floor of an older building, which means I can hear pretty much everything going on outside. A few days after the breakup, I started hearing strange noises at night. Not like regular city sounds, these were different. Footsteps, quiet shuffling, like someone was just outside my window. At first, I figured it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Eventually, though, I came to terms that it was probably my ex. The reason I wasn't really freaking out was because Ben was one of the sweetest and most harmless guys there was. I mean that in a nice way, like he'd never do anything drastic or anything to hurt me. I figured he just missed me, so I decided to let it go. Eventually, he'd get bored. Plus, I was already stressed from the breakup, and I had this huge group project due. That project is actually a huge component to this story. I was the one responsible for editing the project and sending it to our professor. I worked on it all night, making sure everything was perfect, and I emailed it just before midnight. Relieved to have it done, I went to bed, trying not to think about all the other things going wrong in my life. The next day in class, we were supposed to present the video. My professor plugged in his laptop and pulled up the file I'd sent. I was nervous, but I was also kind of proud of what we'd done. I had a lot of experience with Adobe products, and I knew our video was probably a cut above all the other groups. And then the video started playing, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't our project. Instead, there was this grainy video of someone wearing a scream mask. The person wasn't just sitting there, they were talking. They were saying horrible things about me, my professor, the government. It was disgusting. I don't even want to repeat what was said. That's how sick it was. My professor let the video play out a little longer than he should have, probably because he was also in shock. When he did pause it though, his face was pale. I was frozen in place. I have never been so mortified in my life. I was literally frozen. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I could barely breathe. I felt hundreds of eyes on me. The rest of the class was staring at me. I knew what they were thinking. After the most painful seconds of my life, I snapped out of my humiliation and burst out into tears before running out of the lecture hall. I felt a panic attack coming on. I debated going home, but I knew I'd definitely get expelled if I just left. Reluctantly, I waited outside the building for the class to end before approaching my professor. I basically pleaded with him that I had no idea what happened, and that I was positive I had sent the right video. He decided to hear me out and confirmed that 2 videos had been sent. The first one was my project, and the more recent one was the one he played in class. Clearing things up with the university took a lot of time and hassle, but I was eventually able to do it. I won't bore you with the details. Nothing was going to erase the humiliation, though. It was also clear that my email had been hacked, which was a much bigger problem. I changed my password and thought I had just gotten super unlucky. That's when things got worse. Not 1 week later, I woke up to being logged out of Snapchat. That only happens when someone else logs in, which meant I had gotten hacked there too. I don't even want to think about what they found. There was a lot of stuff on my Snapchat I don't feel comfortable talking about. I called the police, told them everything, and to my surprise, Ben agreed to let them question him. The police were able to confirm that Ben wasn't behind any of it. He did, however, admit that he posted my private information on some online forum right after we broke up. He swore he never posted any of my passwords, but my passwords were easy to guess, and like an idiot, I used the same password for everything. The police told me that there wasn't much they could do. Ben wasn't responsible for the hacking. That's when the full gravity of the situation hit me. Someone else had basically all of my private information. They could probably blackmail me. I changed my passwords immediately, but it might have been too late by then. A few weeks went by and nothing happened. My best guess is that whoever was tormenting me realized I had gotten the police involved and didn't want to risk being caught. I thought that was the end of it. Of course, it wasn't. One day, some random person added me on Snapchat, which wasn't too unusual. When I added them back, though, they started sending me pictures of me. I'm sure you can guess the types of things they were sending. I blocked them before they could threaten me, which I'm sure they were about to do. I burst into tears. I've never felt more helpless in my life. For about a week, random profiles would add me on Snapchat. I knew it was the same person, and I never accepted their ads out of fear that they would blackmail me or ask for money. This has been ongoing for about a week now, and I don't know what to do. There's literally no evidence or any way I can track this person. The police don't have enough information to get involved, and it's not like they could do anything anyway. The worst part is they literally know my address and whatever else about my personal life. If I keep ignoring their Snapchat ads, they might do something drastic. They've already lurked outside my apartment. I wouldn't put it past them to go further. I'm praying that they get bored and just quit. For any young ladies listening, be careful about what kind of pictures are on your phone. I don't know if this will ever end.